My foot on the gas like I'm tryna bust out the bottom. Watch I slide, a nigga get off like a potter. Catch me if you can, I'm a bad man. Live a double life like I'm Batman. My foot on the gas.
What is up, everyone? It's your boy Mike from Balls of Fury. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're covering part 3 of ball python care, and today we're going to talk about feeding your ball python. And today's feeding day here at Balls of Fury, so I'm going to show you guys some of the different size rats that we offer to our different size snakes. Now, ball pythons actually eat warm-blooded animals, primarily rodents, mice, and rats. And this is something that you'll have to feed your ball python. You could choose to feed them either frozen thawed or live prey. Here at Balls of Fury, we offer our snakes live prey. It just works better for us. And honestly, the snakes I've seen just eat more consistently. However, there's pros and cons to both. The snakes can thrive on either or. It's really your personal choice. Also, it's really up to the mercy of your snake. If your snake takes frozen thawed, you can offer that. However, just realize and consider before getting a ball python that you may be forced to feed it live food. If this is something that you can't come to terms with, then I wouldn't suggest getting a ball python for your pet snake. There are other snakes out there that you could choose other than the ball python that would take frozen thawed immediately and readily. Ball pythons can be picky and can be tricky to get feeding. So let's get into it, guys. Let's talk about feeding your ball python. Now, here at Balls of Fury, we typically offer our juvenile and hatchling snakes food every 7 to 10 days. We also do this with our adult female ball pythons. During the breeding season, we even increase the amount of food that we're actually offering to our breeder female snakes because they're going to be going through a fast. If they do become gravid or pregnant, they will go off of food, so they have to have very good fat stores in order to make it through the breeding season, produce a clutch of eggs, and actually stay relatively healthy. So every 7 to 10 days for juveniles and hatchlings, as well as our breeder females. And then for our breeder males, we typically offer them food every 10 to 14 days, typically more so on the 14-day side. However, during the summertime, I do actually kind of beef them up a little bit because I know at some point during the winter when they're actually breeding, they will actually sometimes go off of food. So I like my males to have a little extra weight going into the breeding season. And during the winter, we'll kind of just feed them. As long as they keep eating, we'll keep offering. If they stop eating, we'll try to get them to eat mice. So that's kind of the game plan here at Balls of Fury. That's what's worked for us, and that's what I have seen keep our snakes healthy and thriving as far as the feeding schedule goes. All right, guys, so here is one of our snakes actually feeding right now. She is actually feeding on a small rat. And if you look closely at the face, you can see those pits right along her top lip. Those are what are called heat-seeking pits. Now, ball pythons can use those to detect body heat of warm-blooded prey. They actually use this scent more so than their eyesight. So if you are offering frozen thawed, make sure that you thaw it out to the point where it's warm enough where they could actually sense the prey with those heat pits, because if they can't, they will not eat it. But this is a small rat right here, you guys, that she's feeding on. And usually to judge the size of the rodent, you're going to want to go by like the thickest part of the snake in circumference right here. And that's about here. Perfect size rodent for this girl. Usually at about 600-700 grams, I'll start feeding them small rats. And then once they get above like 1,200 grams, they'll start going over to medium rats. But I usually tend to feed on the smaller side just because I feed live, and the rodents can be dangerous to the snakes. They can inflict injuries on your snake. So always be there to intervene if you need to, just in case, and never leave a live rodent with your snake unattended. It's a bad idea, and it can be a recipe for disaster. Also, guys, when you feed your snakes, you want to be able to see usually a pretty visible lump in them. You want to know that they just ate. That means you're giving them the proper sized meal. Now, you don't want to feed them something too big because they could actually regurgitate it, which in layman's term means throw up the prey item. And you do not want this to happen. This could cause a lot of problems for you guys down the road. Next, we'll show you guys a smaller snake. We'll show you the size that we feed them and give you guys an idea of what we're feeding our juvenile ball pythons. This girl is a sub-adult ball python. She is right around the 1,000-gram mark. She's been killing it. She has been doing awesome, and we love her. She's a beautiful snake. She is a fire VPI axanthic ball python. Now here's a perfect shot for you guys of what we feed our younger snakes. This girl is about 350 grams. She is actually eating a weaned rat, or also known as an extra small rat. And as you can see, she's kind of struggling with it right now. She'll eventually figure it out. But another reason I said you guys want to intervene is because look at the teeth on those rats. This is just a weaned rat. The small rat's teeth and medium rat's teeth are even larger. So make sure you're there at all times when you're feeding your snake to make sure your snake doesn't get any injuries. Live prey also has claws so they can scratch the snake. So I am always on top of it, watching these guys eat to make sure that nothing bad or tragic happens. And again, guys, make sure that prey is warm enough if you are offering frozen thawed prey, because these snakes do pick up on a heat signal, and that is what they will use to lock in on their target and actually strike. But look at how beautiful this girl is. And as you can see, that rat right there is about the same size as the thickest part of this animal. So she will have no problem eating this. And this is absolutely healthy and great sized meal for this snake. So typically, when she was a little bit smaller, I was offering her rat pups. Sometimes ball pythons will not take rats off the rip, so you may have to offer them hopper mice at first and then transition them over to rats. I've done this a few times, and it actually isn't really that difficult, but some snakes are pickier than others. You just kind of have to read your snake and see what it likes. And, you know, it's not a bad thing to feed them mice, but as they get older, you definitely want to switch them over to rats, because rather than buying 5 or 6 mice, which could be quite costly, you could buy one small or medium rat to feed your adult snake, and that will be plenty to hold it over for a week or so. And guys, this is a perfect example of what you want to see after your snake eats. This girl is another example of a female who is on small rat. And as you can see right there, you can see just a very subtle lump. You know that she ate something, but it's not so extreme that the snake looks like it's swallowed like a cow. You just want a nice subtle lump like that, and that is plenty of food for this girl for the next week or so. She's doing awesome, you guys. But yeah, really, really good way to judge the prey right here, you guys. And there's a nice big small rat in there for her. She's doing fantastic. She scarfed that down. And look, you can see the bulge right there in her stomach, and she's doing awesome. So yeah, guys, that's how you kind of want to judge what you feed your snakes. And usually, like I said, every 7 to 10 days for females and hatchlings and juveniles. That's what we go with here at Balls of Fury. And then our males is usually every 10 to 14 days. Now, I don't know if you guys noticed behind me, but it is actually dark outside. Like I said in the original video, ball pythons are nocturnal, so I do feed the collection at nighttime. That is when ball pythons will actively hunt, and I've just found that we have more success with consistent eating when we feed at nighttime versus trying to feed in the middle of the day. So I would stick to feeding your snake at nighttime. We also feed our snakes right inside of their enclosures. Some people say to move them to a separate feeding bin. I don't find this to be necessary. I also don't find that the snakes actually becoming conditioned to you opening the tub with food. Honestly, guys, if you're going into the tub and you're actually doing maintenance and spot cleaning and changing the snake's water and interacting with the snake daily, it's not going to associate your hand with food every time that you open the lid. Also, I believe that you actually have a higher risk of being bitten if you are using a separate feeding bin, especially if there is scent of rodents in the room. This is what will trigger your snake to want to feed, and it could mistake your hand for prey. So just leave your snake right in its enclosure, offer it food while it's in its enclosure. A lot of times too, they will be hiding in their hides with their heads out. This is a great time to offer them food because these animals are ambush predators. They will sit and wait for something to come by, and they will take that opportunity to pounce on it and feed. So I would recommend feeding your snake in its enclosure. That's what we do. That's what worked for us. And I haven't had any cases of being mistaken for food. Unless there is food in the room, your snakes do not act in food mode. And there are certain ways that you can break that as well. And I will show you guys that in the handling edition of this series. So this is feeding in the tub. And this snake is doing awesome. This is our girl Ferrari. She's an Enchi Orange Dream Freeway Pied. She is doing fantastic, and she is mowing down that weaned rat. Beautiful. And as you guys can see right here, another great example of the meal being the perfect size. You can see she ate something, but it's not too large to the point where it looks like she is about to explode. Now, I will say, guys, do not handle your snake at least 12 hours before feeding and at least a day or two after feeding. If you handle them after feeding, they could actually regurgitate, and this is something you do not want to happen because it can cause problems down the road. But you also don't want to handle them before feeding, because I find that this actually gets them out of feeding mode and can actually make them not want to eat. So I usually will leave these guys alone at least a day before I feed. And then typically, depending on how big the rodent was they ate, I'll give them about 24 to 48 hours to digest that meal before I actually handle them. But look at how awesome this girl is looking, guys. This is our pastel Enchi Orange Dream Yellow Belly Pied female. Beautiful snake. She is doing so well and getting so big. This girl should be ready to go for us next year and be part of our awesome pied project. So excited for that. And another point about feeding, guys, we do not usually offer our snakes prey when they are going in the shed. This girl is looking pretty dull, so I didn't offer her any food today. She is starting to go into shed. Now, typically, I know which snakes here by now will take food during shed, and if I have an extra rodent left, I will usually offer it to them. But I know that this girl usually does not take food in shed, so I didn't bother to offer. And typically, if your snake is in shed, this will be a time where they will not eat. So I think it's better to not offer them prey, especially live prey, because the snakes really can't see that well when they're in shed, especially if they're deep in the blue phase. But if you're offering frozen thawed prey, you could try to offer that to your snake. However, I usually just leave the snake alone and let it go through the shedding process when this is the case. And one last point for you guys. Before you get a snake, go buy yourself a pair of feeding tongs or hemostats, especially if you plan to offer frozen thawed rodents to your snake. This actually will create a barrier between your hand and the snake. That way, there's less of a chance of your hand being mistaken for food. Also, they're useful if you do decide to feed live prey. I actually use these to intervene in case, the snake grabs the rodent by the back end and its head is free and it can actually bite the snake. I'll gently just grab the rodent by the neck and hold its head there so that it cannot injure the snake. And, I don't enjoy feeding rodents to snakes. It's not my favorite part about feeding these animals or keeping these animals. I would much rather prefer to feed them something else like sausage or anything like that. But this is part of keeping ball pythons. It's something that you're going to have to come to terms with if you do decide to get a ball python. So just keep that in mind. I hope you guys enjoyed the video today. I hope this helped some of you guys learn about feeding ball pythons, what they actually eat, and what you're going to have to do in order to keep them feeding consistently. This is what has worked for us at Balls of Fury. I hope it helps you guys. I hope you have an awesome night. Please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. Please drop a comment. I will talk to you guys soon. Peace.